All right, we are live. Welcome back to another episode of the Jim Gale Show. We are February 1st, 2023. What an awesome day. What a great time to be alive, everybody. If you're like us, you can feel the changes going on that we're creating, right? We are taking these circumstances that have been shown to us, and we are focused every day on solutions. And it's so exciting to be alive. I'm so grateful to be here, as always, with my good friend, Jim Gale. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great, brother. It's wonderful to be here. I just came back from Gall's Landing, where Cameron and the crew, Cameron's just doing an incredible job along with the crew. And he just bought us all shirts. In fact, when you guys start chatting, I'm going to run and grab the shirt that he just made for us. It says grow food. It's the simplest message in the world, right? It's like, it's time that we steward our land again. And I spent the whole day at Galt's, and we staked out our house. Our house construction starts this month, and I'm just so thankful for everything.
Yeah.
So how you doing up there in the tundra?
I'm doing great, man. And funny enough, Cameron, I was just speaking to him before I hopped in here.
Nice.
We're looking at a piece of property together near Gulf's Landing, actually, and he's going to see it probably on Sunday. So we were just talking about different options on this land and some of the things that we potentially could do and getting creative on financing.
Oh, I can't wait to get you in the neighborhood, man.
Me too.
David's been to my property. You haven't even been there yet.
The government doesn't want me to cross the border.
We'll change that. So I'm so excited about our guest today, tackling some of the most important issues that exist in our time. David, man, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
It's an honor to be with you, Jim and Matthew, and so much respect for both of what you guys are doing on the earth, man. Seriously, it really is a beautiful time to be alive, and grateful to have some time to chat with you two about solutions and what y'all doing and how to get the kids out of the school system.
Boom. So tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get passionate about this?
So my original dream was to make a lot of money and sit on the beach and, relax. And then I found out the world I live in is not what I was brought up to see it as. I was raised in a small town in Northern California, Mount Shasta, about 3,000 people in my hometown. And I was in this bubble of just total, picturesque, beautiful area. And then I, went to San Jose State and left the area. And so started to learn about Robert Kiyosaki and these, important stuff. So I'm going to get rich. And then I found out real wealth is making a difference with my life. And one of my mentors, he said, find an injustice on the earth and spend your life trying to correct that injustice. So it took me a few years to kind of zero in on schooling. But as we were talking about previously about John Gatto, that man who explained to me what was going on in schools. I went to public school, and my mother's a public school teacher, retired, a lot of family members there. So but I knew something was wrong inside the school system. And so he explained what was going on. And I said, this is not okay. So I just kind of went down that rabbit hole and ended up getting into business with him and started an Education Options Expo and found out that education's always happening and it's beautiful and exciting, except when it's forced upon me. And of course, the agenda we see in the school system as well. So that's kind of how I got into that world of education, realizing that we are the children. I am the children. I still remember being 8 years old, 10 years old in these schools and just like, what's going on in here? Why do I feel like a prisoner in here? Why do I feel like a slave in here? And I found out that's exactly what it is. And so now I do early high school graduations. I do homeschool consulting. I'll speak at events. I'm doing an event here this month, some homeschool training with parents. Like, hey, mom and dad, we got to really get you guys caught up to speed. What's going on in self-directed learning and true education. And I took it personal what they did to me in the government school system. Once I found out it was intentional and deliberate, I said, oh, okay, so we can complain about it for so long. And then what Gatto taught us is that he said this quote, he said, all effort to reform schooling is a waste of energy and resources. I said, wow, I had to sit on that one for a while. So no need to reform it, in my opinion. I appreciate all the educational reformers out there. But I think, what you guys are doing, starting your schools and other voluntary schools out there. I think that is the future with homeschooling, apprenticeships, and that's kind of a quick sliver how I got into the education world.
Fantastic. Wow. So one of my favorite stories about synchronicity, it's a mind blower, everybody listening out there. I'm going to share this story real quick from my perspective. Then David, love for you to share from yours. So David came to visit me at Galt's Landing about, what was that, 6 months ago or so?
Yeah, maybe 4 months, something like that.
4 months. Time is, I don't get time anymore. I can see the future, but I just don't remember the past as well.
I hear you.
So David comes, you were in town for an event from California, right? Some educational event or a freedom event?
Yeah, some a business event. And I was like, I got to come down. It was only, 30 miles away from where I was at. I said, I got to go see this visionary place, what's building the, Freedom Farm Academy and everything that's going on. So we got to connect.
Yeah. So, and then at the same day, Erin, a good friend and a Freedom Farm Academy owner, came down. She drove down from the Carolinas, and you and Erin were supposed to be at Galt's at different times, but it worked out where you both came at the same time. So we spent about an hour walking around the property and just having a great conversation. And then, if my memory serves, we were in the camper, we were having a drink and enjoying the AC because it was hot as heck out. And Erin she changed the subject. She goes, by the way, my daughter, who's I believe 15 or 16 years old, she just sent me a video this morning of a guy out of California that helps kids graduate from school early. And she goes, I'd like to get a hold of this guy. I'd like to find this guy. And you were sitting across the table from her.
Yeah, that's true.
Is that how you remember it?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. She's like, yesterday she showed me the video, and today she's like looking into it. And I think I'm that guy, Erin. I'm that guy to get the, teenagers out of the school. So she's like, oh my gosh. I said, yeah, we do an essay, we do a letter of recommendation, the enrollment form, we get them out of there, man. We can do it real fast. Part of my hook is like, I can graduate your teenager within a week, which is a big claim, but I've done it before. Sometimes it takes a month or however long it takes, but we were sitting there in the camper and she was like, oh my gosh, because I just was there for this event. And it was really, serendipitous type coincidence. Is very powerful.
Yeah, let's shine a light on the factors that had to come together. First of all, 330 million people in the United States, and she's off subject. We're talking about food forestry,
right? Yeah,
in the Freedom Farm Academy, which I know it's kind of related in our network, but still, she completely changes the subject to education. Right. And all of a sudden the guy she's looking for is sitting across the table. It's Newtonian physics is a lie in a lot of ways, right? There's some half truths to it, but that's the beauty of this world is when we start connecting and resonating and coming back to source. There's cooperative incidences happening everywhere all the time. Most people just aren't aware of them. What do you think?
Yep. I agree. I think human consciousness is evolving and expanding. The vibrations and frequency are rising. And I love Tesla, where he said everything is energy, vibration, and frequency. And I'm like, I heard that a few years ago. And I'm like, I think Tesla's onto some. Of course, Tesla's a visionary of all time, probably. But there's something vibrational. I think when we met last year at the Texas event too, I was like, oh man. And then I started seeing some of your stuff and what you and Matthew were up to. I said, oh my Lord, thank God for these guys, because these guys got the right mindset and the solutions, and like there's work to be done. And I think together, we might be able to do something really powerful with the freedom and education and food and people understanding there's something bigger going on here. Like you mentioned, source. Maybe some people call it creator or God or whatever you want to call it. But I think there is something very magical happening. And, I remember the words from, who was it? Dickens. He said it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. I was like, I understand what he's talking about now, because the world is crazy, but it's like, it's also like really exciting and good things are happening too. So yeah, we're meeting the right people. And I think we're just getting started. I have a lot of hope.
Yep. Yeah, me too. I want to know, based on your time with John Taylor Gatto and what you've been able to extract from him now being a publisher of some of his work, what right away pops to mind when you think about that man and what he's exposed or uncovered through his 30 years as really, you could say, one of the top teachers in New York State, which also meant probably one of the top teachers in the world? What did you gather from that guy?
A lot, but it's hard to put him in a nutshell because he was a business guy also, and he just got into the school business with by substitute teaching. And he's just like, I'll just hang out for a few days. There's this, make a few bucks until my next, advertising job. And he's like looking at the way the schools were run because he was from Pittsburgh or Monongahela in Pennsylvania, where it's like kind of blue collar family values. And he goes to New York and it's completely different. And so that curiosity, those questions drove him, and he was a powerful thinker and a sincere researcher. And one of the questions I asked him towards the end, was like, why did you spend your life doing this research? And first of all, he loved helping and empowering young people, right? He really loved people. But he said, I had to know for myself why the schools were designed this way. So he went down so many rabbit holes, primary documents, and he concluded that this system was designed. And he would call it evil in some ways, but then he would call it logical in other areas, meaning, hey, the giant corporations, they need consumers, they need clerks, the military needs soldiers. It's just like you need this type of factory system for this empire to grow and to build and have all these corporations. So, but he spent his life doing that. And then, as you said, he got the New York State Teacher of the Year twice and then New York City Teacher of the Year 3 times. And so he used that platform not to back down or not to hide the light. He actually used that platform to shed light and expose what was going on. But he was so good because he was very calm and like understood human dynamics, and he wasn't trying to really demonize individuals, but it was the coercion that he was, I would say, vehemently against. And he got it down to basics because it's so much in the school system and the curriculum and the bells and all these different rules and no child left behind and Common Core, like all these things, you can get caught up in the weeds. But through his writings and working with him, it was very clear. And the number one issue was coercion. It was forced attendance. That was the number one problem. He even said that if you made schools attendance voluntary, he said in 5 years you would see a massive change. And he said in 10 years you wouldn't recognize the entire system. So I think that's one of the key things is that, yeah, he wrote a great number of books and amazing documentation, but now here we are in 2023, and it's like the problem is coercion. So I promote voluntary attendance, voluntary curriculum, and you don't need permission to urinate or defecate or get a drink of water. It's like, this is a serious problem, So he had such an articulate way of saying things. I think that's why the homeschool community really kind of latched onto his writings, because he didn't homeschool his kids. He was teaching junior high school students, but he was saying things that most people, many teachers, unfortunately, still don't have the courage to say, but he was saying it without saying, hey, you teachers are bad. He would understand it from the teacher's perspective. He would understand it from the parent's perspective. And then most importantly, from the child or the student's perspective is, stop forcing me to do stuff. That was kind of his conclusions, is when you treat a young person like a human and you stop mandating all these things, they flourish and they develop. But when you treat them like a lesser human or somebody who needs permission to take a break, that's what schools create. They create bullies, they create fights, they create addictions, they create dependencies, so many things which affect the self-esteem, the self-confidence, the courage, the critical thinking ability for the young person. And he was not afraid to speak out about that. And so Now I'm kind of like, we're all standing on his shoulders in some ways, also with Charlotte Isserbit and, Anthony Sutton and some of these other guys who research the school system, Sam Blumenfeld. But he was one of the main guys because of his title, State Teacher of the Year. That's a very prestigious title. So he used that to go out and speak the truth. And I think that's what time it is right now. So I don't really back down from the conversation myself at all because my family had worked in the school system. So there's loving people in the system, but it's the coercive aspect of it, which is totally unacceptable at this point. And he was a great guy. I mean, one of his great documentaries is Classrooms of the Heart, and it shows him inside the classroom. If you want to see how he became State Teacher of the Year and City Teacher of the Year, it kind of like looks behind the curtain and show him some of his methods. One of his methods are really hilarious, and I recommend many public school teachers do this if you can. But he, at the beginning of the year, he would allow and invite his 8th grade students to have a project for the year. Like, what do you want to study this year? Like, forget all the stuff the school's telling you. So what do you want to study? So he would sit down and kind of coach them on a customized learning plan. And turns out you're not going to learn that stuff in the classroom. So he would allow them to leave the classroom. He would mark them as present. And of course, with the permission of their parents, he would meet with many of the parents in their home as well, having that one-on-one relationship with the parent. But he would mark them as present while they go to the city library or go down to the businesses or walk around the city and actually get real world experience. And so he said, after he got famous, like there would be all these teachers and educators from around the country and sometimes around the world who would come, and they want to peek inside his classroom. And his classroom has, 25, 30 people on the roster, but he said they'd look in the classroom, there'd only be 10 students in his classroom. So, his secret started to get out, which was what he said is that once I closed the door in my classroom, that was my own laboratory. I had these students for 40 minutes and I could do whatever I want, basically in that little 4-wall area. But once the fame and kind of a celebrity status kind of came, he didn't have that freedom because now everybody's like looking at his classroom and trying to see what he's doing. And so he had to retire and, became a speaker and, spoke for 25 years on the homeschooling circuit, spoke in all 50 states, 9 countries. And he was the guy to say, hey, look, the school system, it ain't working no more, guys. Stop it. And so that conversation continues, and hopefully, I'll be able to pass the baton on to someone else here in a few decades. But maybe if we do our jobs right as men and women here, mothers and fathers and visionaries on the land, maybe nobody will be attending these compulsory schools in the next, 10, 15, 20 years. It's going to be very interesting because the cat's out of the bag, and Gatto is one of the key voices to push that cat outside the bag.
Yeah, it's definitely out of the bag. It's you see all kinds of people pulling their kids out of this school system right now. And based on kind of where Jim and I both sit, we speak with all kinds of people from all over the world in this, you call it the freedom movement, or the people who are aware of a lot of things that are going on. And I have spoke with so many people who are starting schools, so many people who they've founded their own school. They've already got it up and operational. They're full of kids. The homeschooling, unschooling, private schooling system is booming, and the public one is definitely taking some punches. And you're right, the cat is out of the bag. And I don't know how anybody could feel good sending their kid to that system today.
Right. Yeah, this is what I'm going to be talking about in this training here this next few weeks. Some parents are homeschooling and some know there's something wrong, but their kids are in the school system. So we call the event self-directed learning to kind of give it an umbrella term. And I appreciate Christine's comment there saying unschooling is better. I want to give you some definitions because some people are confused about homeschooling, unschooling, and school at home. That's what I call when the parent tries to duplicate the school system at home. I call that school at home. I don't call that homeschooling. And then my definition of homeschooling is when a leader creates an atmosphere where personalized learning can occur. So that's what homeschooling is in my definition: personalized learning. You, mom and dad, are just creating that environment. And then unschooling, I would say that's the apex, the height of education, which is another way is self-directed learning, which is what we're doing right now. We're just directing ourselves. There's no compulsion. There's no grades. There's no like, you have to do this or else your life is ruined. We're actually students of life, in my opinion. I'm a lifelong learner. And I think that's what parents should be focusing on now. Your child loves to learn.
Yep.
They learn to walk and talk without curriculum, without force or mandates or carrots or sticks. They want to learn to walk. They want to learn to talk. In the same way, they want to be a fully expressed human being. They want to achieve their dreams. They want to experience everything they can in this lifetime. So your job is to kind of like facilitate or guide or be a coach. Learning partner is a great term.
I like that.
Rather than thinking, I'm the teacher and it's math time and language arts time, try to see the world as the classroom. And then the other concept from Valor Academy is anything you can learn from can be a teacher. And so sometimes the elderly people are teachers and sometimes the young people teach us. Like some of these kids just drop so much wisdom and love and compassion on us. We're like, oh my gosh, he's 4 years old, but he's still connected to spirit or to God or something that the young people have. But so those are my definitions. And I think, self-directed learning is the future. And as soon as, a few more parents get that, I think these schools are going to shrivel up and dry, become like grapes on the vine and just shrivel up. And we don't have to fight. There's nothing we need to do. Kind of like what you guys are doing with.
I imagine the schools and a lot of the malls are going broke right now. I imagine these all turning into paradise condominium type of things where there's food growing all over, the roofs catch water, and the whole parking lot, 80% of it becomes the food forest. And all of a sudden you've got a community where you've got all the different functions of a community inside of a school, inside of a mall. You've got the kitchen, you've got all this stuff. Imagine when we tweak some of these buildings to house people. It's so logical and
Right.
relatively easy to do, as long as the government isn't involved with all their bullshit. So there's a couple things I want to chat about. One is this idea that, there are a lot of parents who don't see another way besides sending their kids to school. And then there's somebody like us. Our 13-year-old loves her school. She's got all her friends in her school. And so it's my joyful duty to share with her the PSYOP, to share with her what's actually going on. And out of 30 kids in her school, she was the only one that chose not to wear a mask this was about a year and a half ago, when it wasn't technically mandatory, but every other kid had a mask on. And I was expecting her to choose to wear a mask to not stand out. The fact that she chose not to really kind of blew my mind. But it's not about the judgment of kids that want to wear a mask because of that peer pressure. But what's most important in my perception is just that they know that what they're learning has an agenda attached to it. Yeah. And very young kids can get this when you ask them strategic questions. Yeah. Like, what did you learn today? Oh, so you learned that the United Nations is meant to help and serve humanity. I said, did you know that the United Nations is actually a control mechanism and their job is to enslave humanity? Of course, it's a longer conversation and I'm boiling it down to its roots, right? But she gets it. So now she's able to be in the system, but not controlled by the system. She's able to witness, and she comes home and almost every day we have a conversation. She goes, oh yeah, Dad, listen to what I learned today. And I'll be like, oh, that's geometry. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's good. And then she gets into social sciences and I go, oh, that's absolutely a lie. The actual truth of the matter is when they promote Hamilton as the guy who, did all these wonderful things, yet he's the one that brought in the central banking to the United States system, right? And created that whole structure. We're able to talk about it from that perspective. So that's been something that for those of you out there who your kids are going to public school, because it's the most logical thing for you to do in your life at the moment. Embrace it, but then embrace it with that awareness by sharing with your child what is really going on, and they will get it, especially over time.
Yep. No, I want to emphasize that point that you said. Number one, you gave your daughter freedom of choice, which is awesome. So a lot of teenagers want to go hang out with their friends. I want to hang out with my friends. So it's hard to let go of your friends, but you can still have friends outside of school. But and then the fact that you said there is an agenda going on, I think that's a really important seed to plant as well, because what we're dealing with here is intergenerational organized crime. And so it's the boiling frogs, it's the little by little, two steps forward, one step back, and you start to see, oh man, like we're being used here. And so similarly in my family, I just kind of gave that little analogy of also like you're a pawn in the game, like these guys don't care about you. So letting them know that you can build whatever life that you want, and there is an agenda in the school system. So by exposing the agenda, it almost takes the wind out of the sails. So it's like, this is not the truth. This is just their perspective. This is their agenda. And I always love the analogy of, if McDonald's was running the school system, what would we learn inside the school system? Well, we'd have the flag with the M on it, pledge allegiance to the flag, and the founders of McDonald's. And we would learn how healthy all these poisonous preservatives are. And one day, if we graduate, we can work at McDonald's. And if we're really lucky, we can own a McDonald's franchise. That would be success. So everybody has their agenda. And mom and dad, you would want your own agenda, probably your own values, your own traditions, your heritage, something that's meaningful to you. And if not, maybe just a strong bond of trust and love with your child where they have this opportunity. And even if you have, let's say, a 8-year-old or 10-year-old, and you see the direction of the school system, start making a 2-year plan, make a 3-year plan. I know it's a very scary thing to remove your child, and you got to take the responsibility of educating your child. But let me just try to reframe that if I could. I don't think you can educate your child. I think we can only educate ourselves. And our responsibility as mothers and fathers is to facilitate, to support, because you can give somebody a gym membership, but it doesn't mean they're going to have 6-pack abs, right? So you facilitate, but it's their responsibility. And the sooner they realize that, hey, this is my life, like I'm responsible for this thing called my life, then they start to take it serious and be like, oh my gosh, like I should do something, or I want to do something, or I want to go explore, or these types of different ambitions and different desires. But what we learn in public school, somebody else is responsible for your life. Somebody else is responsible for your future. And, some of us who graduated public high school, we graduate 18 and they give you a piece of paper and they say, now what are you going to do with the rest of your life? And you're like, I don't know. For 12 years, you told me what to do. And so you want to start thinking about this, even if you do have children in the school system, is the sooner they can bear that burden of responsibility and understand that, like, this life is up to you, and you can go for the swing for the fences. You can, try to get a base hit, whatever you want to do, but it's not like I'm responsible for your education. And let me give a couple definitions also of education. So when I do these workshops, I start at the basics, because we've been so confused and just really have our mind controlled and programmed for so many decades and generations. We don't even know what education is. So my definition, and you're free to make your own definition, education is what you do to yourself to create a good life. So the bigger question then is, what's a good life? It's like, yes, let's get philosophical. Let's think about what is a good life, because I didn't have that time to think about that. So that's education. And a schooling is what somebody else does to you for their benefit. So that would be the state for soldiers, and the mega corporations for consumers and clerks, and McDonald's for workers, and these guys. So everything has their own agenda for schooling, but education, this is where the real potential comes out. And like Buckminster Fuller says, every child's a born genius. The challenge is they get de-genius trying to please their teachers and please their parents. So I invite mothers and fathers out there to consider not trying to shape your child the way you want them other than love and trust, self-confidence. But if they don't want to be a doctor, don't make them be a doctor, right? If they want to be a lawyer or whatever, but you give them options. And this is what Gatto said, really profound. He said, in the first 10 years, there'll be about 50 experiences that your child will have that will really shape them. And for the first 7 years, he said just expose them to everything, all types of experiences, social, intellectual, physical, even dangerous events. Like, again, it's a redefining of failure and mistakes. And this is maybe relative for your guys' business. Like, planting stuff is hard. At the event we were at in Texas, Jack Spurko said, walk out your back door, look for the first piece of soil and plant something. I'm like, okay, I'm going to start there because I have a lot to learn. So I grew some stuff and, some watermelon and some eggplant and tomatoes. I'm like, yeah. And then this other plant over here died. I'm like, oh man, how do I get this plant going? Right. So there's this area of like failure, but then learning and say, okay, why didn't that work? So failure is actually where we learn versus when we succeed. We party and we celebrate, which, that's great. Celebrate, party, have great time. But failure is so important for the homeschooling, the unschooling, where it's like, what did you learn? You're not a failure. This thing that you tried didn't work out. Okay, so let's figure out what worked, figure out what didn't work, and we start to reapply some new knowledge or asking, what can we read? Who can we ask? What do I know already? Some of these like basic knowledge gathering tactics that we never learned in public school or university. And so this is what I think the future is going to be, what you're doing: independent food, independent water, more entrepreneurship. Again, getting back to kind of how this country of freedom started was with the Declaration of Independence, declaring we're free. We're not asking permission. And this is, I think, also where you and I connected, talking about voluntarism. Voluntary relationships. Once I learned about the principle of self-ownership, I was liberated. I was like, oh my gosh, I own my body. I knew it, like somebody was holding this secret away from me, and now we discovered it, and the kids know that. So I know it's difficult to raise a visionary leader, but these are some of the things to start with: is self-ownership, personal responsibility, your dreams, and kind of where you want to go, and a lot of experiences. I recommend parents do a lot of experiences, even risky or dangerous ones.
You make some really great points. All of them are, but one kind of that really stands out is how kids love to learn and how they naturally do it, and what they go through when they enter the state-sponsored education system is because they take the enjoyment out of learning, and instead of now getting to learn because they want to, they're now forced. That force makes them not want to learn anymore.
That's right.
It pushes them in a direction of non-compliance. Naturally, right? Some people will get it and buy into it, and then they make their whole life about that thing, or at least their whole school life about, I need to be the best in this class and I'm studying it, right? But from a generalist standpoint, because we do love to learn, and that flame gets fizzled by being told what you have to learn, a lot of people then change the rest of their life because they never learn again once they finish school. And what I discovered from my own experience was I couldn't stand learning in the school. I did really well when I wanted to apply myself. I had a good teacher. I liked them. Things were easy. I would, you'd engage more and you'd have great grades. Then by the end of the semester, you're failing again because you're just not interested in it. But once I left school and I realized I could learn whatever I want, my love for learning has skyrocketed again. It's just completely blown up, where now I'll learn. I learn every single day on purpose because I love it. And then one of the books that stood out in my mind when you talked about failing, I read this a number of years ago, Failing Forward by John Maxwell. Phenomenal book that really teaches you the value of embracing your failures, embracing the mistakes, embracing the things that don't work out well for you, and then evaluating them and like trying to, it's almost like you try to fail, or you try to fail fast, right? Fail fast, fail often, but keep going. And I think what we've done with Food Forest Abundance, we've been trying all kinds of things, and things just click. Oh, that one worked. Great. Keep going. That one didn't work. Okay. Change course, right? Adjust. And that's what's allowing our business to grow and scale with such velocity, is our willingness to try, give it a good shot. If it doesn't work, no one's going, that's the end of it. This is over. It's no, fuck, get up, keep going. What are we doing now? Right? I saw a really good kind of like drawing of success, right? The pathway to success. And people think it's this beautiful straight line.
Yeah.
It's a back and forth and squiggled and up and down and 2 steps back and 1 forward and 5 back, right? It's just all over the place. That's the path to success. The most important piece out of all that is keep going. Never quit. You can change course, but you got to keep going.
Yeah. So beautiful. Yeah. So this is another point about success, right? Like, as I mentioned earlier, success was a huge amount of money. It's like, great, let's make a lot of money, but like purpose, So as mothers and fathers out there, like, what's your definition of success? What do you desire for your child? And this is where we kind of start in the beginning of, well, one of my favorite definitions of success is from Coach John Wooden. And he said, success is peace of mind, which is a direct result in self-satisfaction in knowing you made the effort to become your best. So in short, it's doing your best. And Art Williams is all you can do is all you can do, but all you can do is enough. So it's like this persistent spirit, which children naturally have. I think that's one of the key things that Gatto pointed out in his research too, and kind of discoveries, that he said the only thing you really learn in school is obedience. So it's like, out of all that, he said, don't worry about the curriculum. It's like, you got to have the motivation and drive, initiative, proactivity, and they squish it out. And schools start at age 5 or 6 now. But if parents would hand their child over right out of the womb, the state would take them. But I mean, they're trying to close that gap because they don't want people like us, independent thinkers, high energy, passionate, freedom lovers, good men and women on the earth. As sad as it is, like, they're afraid of us. It's like, wow, you're afraid of me because I believe in freedom and goodness and morality and greatness of the human spirit. It's like, oh man, you guys are losing, man. You guys are going to lose because there's too many of us now. And the children that are being born now, I think they come ready to be the champions in their own fields, and whatever it is. We need it in all fields, in my opinion: the arts, the sciences, literature, all the stuff, the food. And they're coming out like, let me at them, mom and dad, let me at them. And so it's like, you want to empower them. And yeah, this love of learning is so essential. It's like, I agree with you, Matthew. Like, I did decent in school, but I hated reading until I found out later there's actually books about interesting stuff. I thought like all books were like boring, but it's like, there's actually, fascinating stuff in books. So
Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful, man. So, we've talked a little bit about the model that we are designing right now, and it's really the simplest model in the world. It's a PMA school. It's a private membership association school. It's outside of the system. There's no government funding for it. And so the teachers, there'll be 2 teachers, and they'll charge the parents, just like a private school, to bring the kids into a learning environment. And imagine here in Florida, my partners Brian and Christy, they pay $2,000 per month per child. They have Jake and Vanessa. They pay $4,000 a month for their 2 kids to go to a current private school, right? So we're talking about half that. We're talking about $1,000 per month. And now everything we do is voluntary. Everything we do is open source. So we're just giving guidelines. Here's a guideline about what it could be. The location is $2,500 a month. The teachers will make noticeably more than they will at a public school. So the teachers will be making like $100,000 a year and $50,000 a year. So there's like 12,500 right there, or 15,000. And now you've got 7,500 left over. So you've got good teachers who you have your choice of teachers. In fact, any two people can get together and do this type of school, right? And you can earn a very good living by creating massive value. And here's the fun part of the school. The student's primary objective is to learn self-reliance on every level, in every way, to learn permaculture, aka freedom, and the principles of stewardship of our land and of serving our community in a way where the service is reflected back on us. It's a beautiful thing. And the first 3 months, the students are going to design and create their own gardens. Now, we're giving them a head start at Galt Standing. Gardens are already going to be there. They're already there.
Yeah.
Right? So they show up and they've already got all their food for lunches. They learn how to take that food. We're talking probably 2.5 hours a day that are out in the field and actually learning how to work with the chickens, how to catch fish, how to milk cows. They're going to be doing their own yogurt and cheese and ice cream at the school, right? And so within 3 months, they'll create all of their own food systems for school lunches. Then they go into their parents' yards and in groups of 5 or so, and they go in and they design using the principles that they're learning in school, and they install a food forest for their parents. Within 12 months, they've got all of the food needs met for themselves and their families. And then they go into community and they start learning entrepreneurialism. And by the way, we also have a nursery at Galt's Landing where they'll be learning grafting and air layering and propagation and growing food and then selling. And we're splitting the profits 50-50. So the school will actually be earning massive profits within 12 months, my estimation, 12 months to maybe 18 months. The school will be completely paying for itself. By probably year 2, the school is at the parents and the students are actually making money, right? Of course, the fiat system's done. Yeah. Right. That whole system is going to be gone. We need to supplant that system because the CBDCs and the control mechanisms are coming at us from every direction. So this can scale infinitely and very rapidly, and it can solve all the world's biggest problems. What do you think?
Love it. Yeah, absolutely. These CBDCs, who knows how soon, but yeah, they want to transition. My conclusion is the fiat's going to zero at some point, and they want to make that bridge. It's kind of like, here's the fiat, here's the digital, and they got to close it, but then like get us all like dependent on it. They're in trouble. But I mean, I think independent food is going to be the way forward. And it's beautiful thing is food. It's like, it's a glorious, you get to see it grow. You can learn to can it. You can make all types of tinctures, all types of, herbal remedies. And like, it's the answer, God's a genius, turns out. So I love that idea, that the kids are going to learn all these things because it is intergenerational, and there's all these remedies and nutritional. And then you brought up the entrepreneurship. I think very important, to learn basic trade, basic, win-win relationships. That's the actual practice of voluntarism is, hey, I got this apples and you have this, drink or, whatever you have, massage or something, let's trade. And whenever this fiat goes down and they're really going to push hard for the RFID chip or whatever cockamamie thing they have, we're like, no, thanks. No, we're not going to participate in that thing. And the young kids, because of this type of facilitation and truth that they're getting, they're going to be able to see it and say, no, why do we want that? We're just going to use our own stuff. And there might even be some old, silver coins that are being transacted in the meantime, or, maybe some privacy coins, or a lot of different things can be used as currency when fiat is useless. So it is, I think it's glorious, what you guys are doing. And yeah, looking forward to see it manifest. And this is the way it is. This is the way the fathers and the mothers say, you know what, that's not working. This is the exit and build strategy, or the other Buckminster Fuller quote, you never change reality by fighting against it. You got to make a new model that makes the old model obsolete. Yeah. And that is the theme, I think, for this generation is keep your hospitals, keep your grocery stores. You guys going to go with all that stuff? We're going to be over here And one thing I love about what you say, Jim, is demonstrating freedom. I saw your video. Shout out to Jordan Peterson that you made a few months ago. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's exactly it. This is how we have to bring them on board to demonstrate it and show them, because, you know, we used to be an agricultural society when there weren't these mega corporations, but I would say for at least 30 years, maybe 60 years, our mothers and fathers have been dependent upon it. And now it's like, okay, when everything goes bad, what do we have? And we have relationships, we have food, we got water. From that, we can build everything back up. Hopefully we have electricity, but even if we don't have that, we can get by. But humans and food and water are super important. I think you guys probably know about Kissinger and some of these guys. They say they're saying it. What was it? The 2016 quote, the lady said, "You'll own nothing and be happy." But she also said, "You'll have no privacy." So I think that's also another important point about privacy. A conversation for later. But I recommend parents try not to, you know, enroll your child in all these public stuff and give them all this information. This is your child. It's none of their business what you do with your child. And if you look at the hierarchy of authority, it's supposed to be God, humans, and then government. And so government's trying to be God now, and we don't need that. But we got to have these conversations openly, so it's like you don't feel isolated. You know, this whole 6 feet apart, and you know you got to stay inside the house. That's communist totalitarianism tactics, specifically to make you feel alone. But the truth is that we outnumber these guys, and now we're organizing, and that's why there's so much excitement and so much energy, and this frequency and attraction is coming. It's like now we're able to see each other now, and it's so crazy when you can see a freedom person and you're like, oh my gosh, like we don't even have to agree on everything. Let's just agree on freedom of choice. Yeah. You know, so when I do my presentation at the Greater Reset, even back in Texas, it was like, okay, I promise to never force you to do something. Do you promise never to force me to do something? Can we agree on that? You know, it doesn't matter about politics or religion or none of that. Veganism, just don't force me. I won't force you. Can we agree? We believe in voluntary consensual relationships. Great. We're voluntarists. Great. We got that problem solved now. We don't got to worry about
it's the only problem we need to solve. Everything else will solve itself when we get that logic in our consciousness.
Yeah. Seriously. It is. And kids get it. You know, kids understand. This is why if you steal a kid's toy or, you know, force them to do something, they see the contradiction. So again, for like mothers and fathers out there who spank your kids, I was spanked growing up, and like I remember my mom, God bless you, I love you, mom and dad, but like, you know, spanking me, says this hurts me more than it hurts you, and it took me like 10 years to understand what that meant. So she's trying to, you know, give me pain to try to minimize some future pain in the future, and she was only working with the tools that she had. So we want to help our children understand there's consequences for what you do, but you can trust me. And that's what I tell my clients is that, yes, you want your child to succeed. You want your child to have a good life. But most important is you want your child to know that they can trust you and that you are the one person that you can trust and the one person who has unconditional love for you, the child. And I did get that from my mom, you know, and my dad. Of course, the men aren't expressive about love, so the mother is expressing it. But I know that my mom loves me, and like it's like it's weird to say that as a man, but it's like, dude, love is important. Love is everything, dude. Love is the whole ball game. So try not to hit your kids. You know, like there's certain things about discipline, but you know, hitting a weaker, vulnerable, dependent, smaller individual is like so 20th century, man. I think we got to level up here for the 21st century.
You talk about the trust with the parents and the children, and that's one of the main things I dislike about the lie of Santa Claus and pushing that shit so hard on little kids. Because
I agree.
That's one of the bonds that's broken because you lie to them year over year around a very special thing. And we have 2 young kids. We talk about Santa, but we don't pretend that Santa is some magical thing that's going to come through. Like we have already told our children, and they're not even 4 years old yet. Like our oldest is 3 and change. And
Yes.
she already knows that this is all just a play thing that we do for fun.
Yes.
And we only gave her one gift from Santa this year, but doesn't matter. But you know what's interesting is how society perpetuates that.
Yeah.
How many people, as we were leading up to and post, asked, were you a good girl this year? Is Santa going to bring you lots of gifts? Were you really, they start instilling that stuff. And our daughter would look at us going like, this person doesn't know what they're talking about because Santa's not even real. Like,
That's awesome.
I think it's a mistake that parents go hard on that story for as long as they possibly can, and then the kids find out from somebody else, and then they fight. They push back against that. The kids telling them it's not real, and they're going, "Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. My parents told me." And then they go home and they ask, and they find out, "Uh-oh, my parents lied to me."
Yeah.
And what does that do psychologically? It's not on the surface, but that thing, what does it do inside your brain?
Yep. That's right. It puts that doubt. The one person who brought you in, or two people who brought you in to this planet, they're lying to me. And so it causes distrust. And so we know through the United Nations, the agenda is to make the state the parent. And so this is what we see in totalitarian regimes is they turn children into spies. So that this is why when your child comes back from college or sometimes high school, they say, Mom, you can't say that. Dad, you can't say that. So they start to police your language. And we see what Harvard's doing, trying to say you can't say the word field because that's racist. So all this is mind control. And this is all signs that we are winning, because the reason they have to use censorship is because the truth is getting out. Now they have to attack certain characters and people that stand out. But I think the tide is rising, and they're not going to be able to suppress it. But yes, that's right. The freedom frequency and it's one relationship at a time too. So that's like when I talk to my clients too, is like, yes, the system's terrible, but just focus on your child and your son and daughter and their needs, because the system is going to go down and there's going to be a lot of carnage, unfortunately, I believe. And a lot of people are going to get hurt because of these predator psychopaths. But that's not us. We're going to find the solutions, and we are creating solutions right now through conversation and through language, which is building trust. I'm so glad you mentioned the Santa Claus thing. One of the things that irks me about our culture, and it shows us how sick our culture is right now, is I think on one of the talk shows, Fallon or Kimmel, one of these guys, during Halloween, they'll do this candy thing, and their kids go out trick-or-treating to get all this candy, and then the kids wake up the next morning and there's an empty bag, and the parents film it and they tell the child that they ate all their candy. And it's like major trauma right there. Like all this hard work for their parents' pleasure. So this is where parents don't have a clear role of what they are in their child's life. They're the model of the masculine and the feminine. They're the model of a good human being. And this shows the power of the parents, the power of one father, the powers of one mother. And if there's a blended family, cool, you guys can make it work. But just one good father, one good mother showing them, hey, here's how you forgive, here's how you serve, here's how you lead, here's how you all these different things, where it's like we shouldn't have to learn these in a book. Kids are just sponges, and they're just watching. So this is what I tell parents also is if you're not sure about the curriculum, and we can talk about that here before we got to end up in the conversation. But one of the best things you can do, mom and dad, is to have your own learning project. So even if you're in your 30s or 40s or 50s or wherever you are, have a learning project that you're pursuing, something that you are like passionately curious or interested. And that way, when your 5-year-old, 10-year-old, 12-year-old comes up and says, hey, mom or dad, what are you doing? You're like, oh, I'm learning about this. Oh, wow. So they see a lifelong learner in action, and they're watching you and observing you. And this is why the children will often repeat the stuff that we say, and because they're just downloading. And if we're yelling and screaming and being a jerk, then that's how they replicate that, and that's what they learn in school. But around us, we're that safe zone. We're that place where they can go with their problems, with their concerns. It's already confusing enough to be a human being, let alone being 8 years old and being asked in a public school, Are you gay? Are you a boy or a girl? Like, these things are all signs that this is the
Yeah.
end of the system. This
Yeah.
is the end of the machine. And it's going to take a lot of courage from you, mom and dad out there, to remove your child, or at least have this conversation with them, but start making a plan. My prediction, the dystopian prediction for the schools, is that they're going to be administering these jabs in the schools in the next
Yeah.
5 to 7 to 10 years, and probably doing gender surgeries in the schools or in a building next to it. That's what I see. They're not going to stop. They've showed their hand. They're injecting them with total toxic, untested ingredients. So, seeing where that is, mom and dad, if you have a 5-year-old, start preparing now. Start
I just
researching
want to
on
just jump in on the thing. These ingredients are tested, and they're not experimental. They know exactly what they're doing. They're destroying the ability to reproduce and worse. So with a couple of minutes left, David, tell us what you do for people and how people can find you.
Yes. So I help parents remove their children from the school system with teenagers, early high school graduation, as young as 13 or 14 years old. And we can do that within a week or 2 weeks. I also do homeschool consulting one-on-one, and we'll be doing some group calls here shortly. So you can kind of get this back and forth for the curriculum, for the socialization question, for the college question. We didn't touch on that one. For the, the future. Like, so my goal is that your child becomes extremely successful, and they're like, oh yeah, Dave Rodriguez helped me out. Like, that's awesome. So that's the whole point, because the children are us. We are the children. We are all one conscious, unity consciousness. And when I see the children suffering, I see me suffering. I see my family suffering. And so I get them out. The event, one of the ladies you referred me to, we're doing an event in Mississippi in a few weeks. So if you want to fly me out, hire me out, we'll do a weekend event, and we'll do a whole training event. And that's what we're doing over there. So we're going to have a room, I don't know, 30, 40 people. And that's what I do as well. So the main goal is to help mom and dads reprogram this beautiful mind that God gave you, so you can understand what is education, what is success, what are you after, what are you actually intending for you and your child and your family and your legacy. And that's a lot to do, but that's why they took over schooling, and that's why so many families are removing their children in droves. The number is over 1 million families have removed their children in the past 2 years, and they say it's closer to 2 million. So
Wow.
There's a leak in the system, and it's visionary mothers and fathers, courageous parents doing the good work, and I just kind of support and help. I know you guys got the really hard work of constant love, constant support, constant providing, and then you can find me at davidjamesrodriguez.com and learn all about that. You can email me at info@thevaloracademy.com if you want to graduate, have some questions about that. But yeah, so much respect for you, Jim, and you, Matthew, what you guys are doing in your own leadership for demonstrating freedom, showing the people the solution to the absolute monstrosity of statism, and demonstrating. I think it's so powerful. I think you guys are going to continue to be successful, and I think more families are going to get out, and we'll funnel them into your schools or into homeschooling, whatever it is, and just create these food freedom farm academies, food forest abundance, the double F and the A. Yeah, it's really an honor to meet you guys.
We supplant the future farmers of America. We are the future farmers of America. Yes. We want that. We'll be happy to have that debate.
There's one other thing that I want to say here, because it goes so well with what it is you're talking about, getting the state involved. And this is something very important for people to understand. When you get married and you sign a marriage license, you are entering into a contract with the state. You, mother, father, three-way bond with the state, which is why they have access to your kids.
That's right.
If you don't want to be in that, you need to get your marriage officially annulled. Like, it doesn't matter if you get divorced, you're still tied to the state. You could be married and divorced 5 times. You have 5 ties with that individual to the kids in each one of those scenarios. If you really want to remove your children from that position of state tied, you have to have a wedding, and you do it with your own agreements. There's no legal license contract that's signed with the state. And it's so interesting how women will talk about, I'm going to my wedding, and then they talk about, I'm officially married. They're two different words with two different meanings. Getting married is attachment to husband, wife, state. Wedlock is joining man and woman. That's where you want to be if you truly want to protect your children from the state education system, the state pharma system, the state, right? Name your thing. They can come and take your kids away if you've entered into that contract with them. So important piece.
That's a great point. Yeah, I'm sure we could probably talk a lot about that. Let me just give a last little comment on that, because it's so true about the contract. All these licenses are completely unconstitutional, unlawful. You're allowed to do whatever you want on the earth as long as you don't harm anybody or their property, and you uphold your contracts. It's called the non-aggression principle. This is the way forward, in my opinion. And with assets, I'm glad you mentioned the PMA as well. So there is a paper game to play. And a little side note, 2 years ago, I got arrested in a post office for not wearing a mask, and I got trespassed. Anyways, I just filed a federal lawsuit. So there'll be some details about that, because, you know, when I'm the defendant, I'm on defense, but now I'm on offense. So, you know, I'm going into uncharted territories to learn so I could pass it off to my kids and the next people. Like you bring up, these are all little secrets about the marriage license and your private contracts. The last thing is that in the Constitution, which is supposed to be the support of the government, it says no state shall pass a law abridging or something to the effect of breaking a contract. So when you and I make a contract, the state can't break it. They don't have the ability to break a private contract. So there's a lot of power right there, and that's what we're starting to learn. And you guys are doing the great work with the PMA and the Food Force, and so much to talk about. We should have this conversation again.
We sure will, brother. I love it.
Yeah, as soon as you brought up even going into the courtroom and being a defendant or plaintiff, again, these are all labels, and I'm learning so much about this. It's fascinating, but it's all words that they use to lower us from being mankind or womankind. Right? Yes. You talk man, woman, and then everything else is a fictitious creation that we participate in willingly but unknowingly.
Coerced.
Yes. Coerced.
Yeah. And that right there makes it an illegitimate contract, because it's coercion, it's manipulation, it's lies. So, man, David, I'm so glad that we've been connected. It was really good to hang out with you a couple of times in person. And I can't wait to see you here at Gall's Landing. And you should see, since you were here, it's just hundreds. Life is just exploding throughout the place.
Yeah, well, keep it up, man. I appreciate your little walk and talk videos and showing the progress. And yeah, man, you guys are the hope of the food and demonstrating how to do it, man. I think there's a lot of strength in your teams and your affiliates and stuff like that. So thank you for the great work that you're doing. And yeah, we'll continue to have these conversations probably for the next few decades, but hopefully sooner than that, we'll see you at the next live event.
It's going fast. Awesome, brother. Awesome. Love you, man. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, peace, man. Matthew. Love you, Jim. Love you, Matthew. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. What an awesome episode. Check out davidjamesrodriguez.com. All kinds of value there. And Dave, thanks for joining us, my bud.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Bye, everybody.
I'm going to play a few ads from our sponsors and team, and you guys are free to hop off. Hey, Jim Gale Show listeners. Again, thank you for tuning in. We love having you here. We're so honored. And, I want to give you a little bit of exciting news. We've decided to offer complimentary food forest strategy sessions with a certified permaculture designer. These are 30-minute sessions where you get to sit down with someone who can really help you with a strategy for your own property. It's a great chance for you to ask some questions and learn and just really to dig into what's possible. This is 30 minutes with someone who's certified, knows all about permaculture and what's possible using this incredible science and working with nature. So head over to foodforestabundance.com and schedule your 30-minute food forest strategy session today. Again, that's foodforestabundance.com. And remember, get yourself registered for that 30-minute strategy session. And for doing so, we're going to give you a $100 coupon as well. So get over there, have some fun, learn about what's possible for you and your own property, and let's get growing some food. Thanks again for tuning in to the Jim Gale Show.
At Weston A. Price Foundation, we're dedicated to restoring nutrient-dense, farm-fresh foods to the human diet. We look to ancient food and health practices for clues on how to live our healthiest, most vibrant lives today. Join the mission and check out our exclusive membership details at westonaprice.org. As a member, you'll receive our quarterly journal on wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts, our annual shopping guide, monthly access to private Q&A sessions with experts, consultations on state laws, regulations, and policies, including food freedom legislation, and so much more. Weston A. Price Foundation. Let's return to wise, traditional foods.
Hey, thank you again for tuning in to another episode of the Jim Gale Show. We're very grateful that you decided to invest some of your time with us. What a blast today's conversation was. Hope you found some value in it and that you'll tune in again to our next episode. We do have a number of shows coming up, as well as our weekly podcast that is released on Fridays. So we hope you get value from this. And if you do, please share with others. We are always looking to inspire more people to take action on becoming self-sufficient the best way they can and support you on your journey of learning. So investing time with us, we hope, is a great way for that to happen for you. So again, if you love the value that we're providing here, if you've found any greatness from it, please share with others. We would love to inspire them too. Thanks again for tuning in. Have an amazing day.